So we have guardian of the estate and we have guardian of the person. So I'll talk a little bit about guardian of the person is just that. It's helping that individual, supporting that individual in making medical decisions, ensuring that they have proper residence for their needs. It may be finding an assisted living or a memory care facility. Guardian of the estate is just that. So a lot of times people hear the word estate and they automatically think someone's deceased, which is a big mistake. And that is anything and everything to do with money.
Welcome to the Living Well and Aging Smart podcast, the podcast for seniors who are currently, maybe with their families, navigating the next transition in their life and hopefully doing so with a little bit of purpose, a little bit of wisdom, and a little bit of humor, maybe a lot of humor, because I think we get to where we're at today. You need to be a little bit more humorous. Here's the cool part, is every week we're going to discuss things that matter to those of us who are seniors. My name is Mitchell Schwartz, broker salesman's license 19845, Keller Williams The Marketplace. I am a certified senior advisor, a certified aging in place specialist, and a senior real estate specialist. And what that means to you is I get to help you discuss things that will improve your well-being. Things that might include housing, might include health, to scams, to security and safety, and staying connected with one another, right? Here's the thing, it's not about just listings and sales. It's not about that. Every week, we discuss things that matter most to our clients, the senior community out there, things that will help you make the decisions about your life's transitions, about your aging in place, if that's what you want to do, and protecting your legacy. And guess what? From time to time, we'll talk real estate stuff too. Why? Because you need to have the best information to make the decisions for you as they come up, right? I'm also going to have people on here from week to week that are going to help you through stories and insights. And these are professionals who work in our community who very much care about the seniors they work with. So as we do that, thanks for being here. Let's get started on our episode today. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with you.
Hey everybody, Mitch Schwartz here. Keller Williams Realty, your senior focused agent. It's time for another Living Well and Aging Smart podcast. And I have my friend Susan Hoyt here today, and she is going to talk to us about guardianships and protecting your interests, and more importantly, setting you up for success. Because guess what? We're all going to die, and we all might have things happen to us. And she's going to tell us all kinds of cool things that she can do to protect you and your family and everybody else that's involved while she manages and makes sure that nobody runs away with your money. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me today.
I'm so glad you're here, because I truly, when we sat down and had coffee and then since then talked to other people, I thought, okay, this is a person who needs to know my people. Because I deal with a lot of people who are, like right now, tomorrow somebody who's moving their mom to Houston. I'm already getting a listing with somebody who's living in North Carolina. Mom's already there. There could have been an alternative to somebody maybe staying here if they had somebody to protect their family and they understood that, right? I think that would have been, and neither of them requires memory care. They just want them closer to their home, but maybe it'd be easier for them to stay here. Anyways, so let's start with telling us a little bit about your history. Like where you came from, before you came to Vegas, what you do beforehand, what caused you to do this?
Pretty much grew up in Las Vegas. I've been here since 1973. So
wow.
Give away my age a little bit.
She got here before I did. I got here in 83, so.
Yeah, so my family moved here in 73. My dad was one of the fire chiefs out at Nellis Air Force Base.
Oh, boy.
And retired after 30 years, and we just stayed. And so I've been here ever since.
And you didn't become a service member?
No, I did not become a service member. Watch the community grow, right?
Yeah,
so I grew up off of Washington and Jones, which is now like not even the center of town.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we can all remember when we used to ride motorbikes and horses out near Rainbow.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And so I've really only had 3 jobs my whole life.
No.
Yeah, so started out, I had a very short stint at Mervyn's, the
Oh,
department store,
back before they closed up shop.
back before they closed up shop one holiday season.
Over here at Meadows?
Over there at the Meadows
Oh,
Mall.
boy.
And then I went to work at the Elgin Convalescent Hospital,
Oh,
which was
wow.
one of our last privately owned facilities in our community. And I worked there for over 20 years. I started out as an assistant to the social services. I actually started as receptionist, assistant to social services, went into kind of risk management, and then went into the admissions role. So my role at the nursing home was to screen potential clients for the facility, determine if they were a right fit, needed the care
Right.
that we provided, and then helped them and their families guide through, Medicaid, Medicare, long-term care insurance, how all of those, how the state would be funded.
Yeah,
Basically.
untangle all the different
Well,
pieces.
untangle all those pieces.
Wow.
And I did that for 21 years. And through that work, I met multiple elder law attorneys because I did most of the Medicaid work. And we did a lot of really challenging cases where there might have been assets or transfer of assets or spouses in the community and one spouse is in the nursing home. And so through that work, I met multiple elder law attorneys. Some that have since retired, James O'Reilly, Jack Fields. But one of them had suggested to me looking at being a guardian. And here I am today,
Wow,
18
so that
years
was your
later.
third job.
This my third work is
Wow.
Nevada Guardian Services. Yeah.
Well, interesting thing. First off, you were working in what we used to call nursing homes and convalescent hospitals.
We still call them that.
Wow, we call them skilled nursing.
Oh yeah,
facilities.
skilled nursing facilities.
A little bit,
yes.
a little bit
Long-term
lower-
care
long-term
units.
care. That's right, right. We want to keep the
Custodial
vernacular, and I say that only because when I talk to certain clients and I've heard them say the word nursing home,
Mhm.
that what they conjure up is different than what it is today, I think. So you're very blessed to have seen both sides of that, I think. And now the work that you did there has really got to naturally have fed you this last 18 years in doing the work that you do now. So when you were talking to that attorney,
Mhm.
what was it about you that they said, oh, you'd be really great if you were a guardian? What did they think? What did they see in you?
Advocacy.
Advocacy.
I've always had a strong sense of advocacy for people because in my work in the nursing home, there were so many clients, so many patients that did not have families or did not have families that were stepping up for them that really did not necessarily need to be in the nursing home.
Right.
And they didn't have the access to resources to help get them out of the nursing home
Right. So they
They-
kind of get stuck.
they
in
just
that
got
damn
stuck
slide. Yeah.
in the facility, right? And so the advocacy part of it for me was a huge impact on just naturally leaning into being a guardian and doing the guardianship work because I wanted what was best for people. I
Yeah.
wanted what they wanted. And sometimes what happens when patients get into a nursing home, maybe they're not hearing well
Right.
and all of a sudden they have dementia. And it's just a matter of hearing aid.
Right. Isn't that funny how that works? Because I discovered, at least in my time frame, that sometimes children aren't listening to their parents, and all of a sudden their parent is wackadoodle. And I'm like, that's not really what's happening here. I want you to slow down and listen carefully to what mom is saying. Because if you do that, you might have different questions and you might get different answers and realize she doesn't have dementia and she's not declining. She's really, truly there. So I bet the times that people didn't have an advocate standing up for them actually led, unfortunately, down a path that was almost irreversible.
Sometimes it is irreversible, absolutely. And estates would be just depleted,
Right.
just paying for the nursing facility while waiting to have the resources or have someone appointed to be their guardian
Right.
to help get them out of the facility. And then when that would happen, more times than not, there were no resources to really get them out. Their only choice was Medicaid and they were like stuck
And-
where they were stuck.
And how many people
For lack
get
of a
taken
better term.
advantage of in a situation like that too? Thank God that you're here to stand. Like I almost picture if I, mentally think about what I see you as. I see like the senior standing over here. I see bears and lions and tigers, oh my, on this side trying to come after them for whatever their resources are. And I see you standing firmly in the middle saying, yeah, you got to go through me first.
Right. Got to go through me and my team. Well, in the real estate industry, someone's gone maybe even for a couple weeks in a hospital. I've had cases where squatters have moved in.
Oh, yeah.
Or there's been, a leak in the home and then damage and then fighting the insurance company because they're saying, oh, it's neglect. You didn't fix the leak. Well, the person was in the hospital. So the advocacy part is so huge when someone is vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's what really drives me to do the work. And sometimes it's not a permanent position to be the guardian. It just getting people connected to the right resources can help them get back on their own feet again.
Well, and that's the advocacy, right? Because not everybody needs a bodyguard, so to speak, right? Sometimes people need to have someone stand up so they can lean into the strength of that bodyguard until they feel strong enough to do some of these things on their own. You see that?
Oh, all the time. All the
Yeah,
time. We see that all the time.
That's powerful. So what exactly do you do as a guardian?
So guardian is two parts. So we have guardian of the estate and we have guardian of the person. So I'll talk a little bit about guardian of the person is just that. It's helping that individual, supporting that individual in making medical decisions, ensuring that they have proper residence for their needs. It may be going home and coordinating healthcare, coordinating personal care attendants. It may be finding an assisted living or a memory care facility. It may be following up with specialists after a hospitalization. Right. Guardian of the estate is just that. So a lot of times people hear the word estate and they automatically think someone's deceased.
Which is a big mistake.
So in other jurisdictions, it's referred to as a conservatorship. And that eliminates that confusion. In Nevada, we refer to it as a guardianship of the estate. And that is anything and everything to do with money and anything and everything that's really tangible. Personal property, vehicles,
Cars, rental properties,
yeah, all of those
boats and whatever they have, jewelry, anything that could be of value.
Right. And then maximizing those assets to care for the individual during their lifetime.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
About maximizing
how
resources.
do you do that? Do you just do it by virtue of protecting them? Or do you have them sit in front of you and say, well, I've got this, but I need that. And you guide them to making financial decisions that are going to achieve what they're looking for, sort of like a financial advisor, or is it different?
No, it's much different. So guardianship basically is a legal process. So once there's a guardian in place, that guardian has a legal authority to make the decisions. Our standards of practice is person-centered planning, which means to the extent that the individual can participate in those decisions, we want to include that individual in those decisions. Great. And, there's the best interest principle, and then there's substituted judgment. So best interest is really looking at the whole picture. Say someone needs a memory care and their income is X amount a month, which doesn't meet the cost of the memory care facilities. We know those can average, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month. Yeah. And not everyone has income at $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. And their largest asset is usually their home.
Right.
And so the decision has to be made to sell the property. And the person may not want to sell the home. However, they don't have the resources to be home alone with 24-hour care, which can be upwards of $25,000 a month.
Right, which is considerably more.
Absolutely. And so the guardian, when appointed by the court of the estate, guardian of the estate, is tasked with making those really tough decisions. It's in the client's best interest to sell the property, even if the client really doesn't want the property sold. And then all of that's done through a court process. There's authorities that have, petitions that are filed, authorities that have to be granted by the court. There's a great deal of oversight in Nevada. How those assets are navigated and how they're spent for the benefit of the protected person. So a lot of people, have this misconception that as a guardian, we just have a magic wand and we can just wave and we solve everyone's problems.
That would be sure nice.
And wouldn't it be nice? Yes. And we can just sell a property when we want to, sell a vehicle. That's completely untrue. Right. There's so many statutes and legislative and court processes in place to protect that individual and to ensure that what assets are under management of a guardian, whether it's my agency, the public guardian, or like a family member, that those assets are used specifically for the benefit of the individual under the guardianship, which we refer to as a protected person.
Yeah, well, I love the idea that there's multiple layers there, right?
Right.
Because then, while it gives you an authority to make decisions, you're not absolute, right? It's not like you're God. You get to make choices that are still subject to somebody looking over going, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Or tell me more.
Right.
Right? And that's cool. So let's talk about the guardian. I'm going to go back to the guardian of the person again. I would imagine that you probably run into cases where maybe you have an older couple and they have a special needs child. Do you run into situations like that where you actually then, after they pass, have now become the guardian for their special needs child?
Depends on the child's needs. And something kind of exciting that just happened, was 2019 is the supportive decision-making agreement. So when you say to me a special needs child, I immediately think of someone that may not need a guardianship, probably a young adult that benefits from a supportive decision-making agreement. So the guardian of person would be separate from a supportive decision-maker, someone who helps that individual make decisions, not necessarily is making decisions. So
maybe someone who's trained in that disability,
right.
Maybe they're autistic, right? And they're trained with helping that person with autism make the better choices for themselves.
Or a good family friend or a sibling or someone in, one of the programs that they're in. The estate side of it, if proper estate planning has been done, then there's a special needs trust. Our office frequently serves as trustees for the special needs trust. And that's meant to continue to provide for the disabled adult child while maintaining their benefits for Medicaid, their benefits for SSI, their benefits in whatever program they may be enrolled in at the time, especially if those programs are means tested, meaning that there is limits for assets and limits for income, so that whatever they inherit after the passing of their parents is protected from those programs and helps them maintain their eligibility for their programs.
Oh, that's outstanding.
So there's multiple layers.
No, I think that's very interesting, and that's going to be somewhat challenging, just to the degree of the amount of questions and learning about those people you need to do prior to taking on that role, because you'd really need to understand the person you're going to be looking after, at least even from a financial aspect, right?
Absolutely. And so many times we meet with the parents prior to their passing, sometimes many years before they pass away.
Right.
And we have a very good understanding of what their disabled adult child needs, what services and benefits are in place, how much income they're receiving, who's monitoring that income, who's managing that income, what programs they're in, so that when they lose a parent, which would be very traumatic for them in most cases, to lose really a lifetime of support.
Right.
So you want to be able to step in with very little disruption to what their needs are.
Wow. That's going to weigh pretty heavy.
Sometimes it does.
I would think so, especially how the child is going to react.
It weighs really heavy on the clients, on some of the people that we meet. And we just keep in touch with them throughout the years. How are things going? Any changes and any changes to benefits? Anything we need to know about? Are they receiving SNAP benefits? Did they move? Are they in their own apartment? Will a home be inherited when you pass away? If so, is there enough money to maintain the house? How are we going to navigate those things?
Sure. I mean, because certainly as little disruption as possible for that child, that person who survives, if they're used to living in a home and that can be maintained long after, and they can stay there on their own without worry of burning the place to the ground or whatever, I think that's probably really good for that person.
Absolutely. And less disruption really means that there's been a lot of work done prior to.
Yeah.
Even if it's years of work, even if it's years of, a phone call once a year to touch base.
I think
planning is huge.
Huge. And I think all too often people keep putting off what they should do now. If I was dealing with a special needs child, I would think that I would have the wits about me to say, listen, I'm now 61. I'm not going to live to 100. I'm not going to outlive this child. Mm-hmm. They need to be protected. What do we need to consider today so when I do finally pass, that things are done? So let me flip that over just a little bit. Let's say, take for instance, in a traditional situation, you have a family and they've got a trust, and there's, their primary and several investment properties and some insurance and stuff. Yeah, they've got kids and stuff, but you ever have situations where somebody says, listen, I don't like kids to mess with this. I just want a third party who has no biases at all to be my successor trustee. Do you ever see that?
We see that quite often. And where that comes from really is that the parent doesn't want to burden the other siblings with with being the trustee, or maybe they don't even live in the same state.
Right.
Maybe they've moved away. They live in another country, or they live in Carolinas or on the East Coast, or they have their own families.
Yeah.
So we see that really frequently.
Do you ever have situations in which somebody has, say, a trust, and then they, obviously they're going to pass, and they've elected as a part of their directives within the trust that the trust be maintained after they pass, and investments are bought or sold throughout the trust lifetime, and there's income and or investments that are made through that trust to maintain it, or do you just, is it more at the time when you become the successor trustee in those instances, are you charged with just basically liquidating the trust and dispersing assets?
Absolutely not liquidating the trust and just dispersing assets, or absolutely not having it forever. That's the beauty of the trust. You can
do whatever
you want to do. You can set it up and you put those instructions in there. And when we're nominated to be a successor trustee, when someone dies, we want to sit down with them and talk to them about it. What do you see?
Right.
What is the perfect scenario? You're watching from wherever you believe.
Right.
What does this look like?
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I do talk to people a lot who say, well, I really don't care about my kids. I blah, 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 blah. Let them fight it out. And I'm like, well, probably not the best thing.
Not the best thing.
If you really dislike your kids, I guess that's a good choice, right? I tell people all the time, if you love your children and your family, you'll get a trust. If you don't, you'll die with a will. But if you really hate them, you'll die without anything. And I think some people are like, I don't really care. And I'm thinking, well, maybe you don't care because they're going to fight. But if you had a third party that could kind of step in and say, listen, these are the wishes that they've set forth. This is the way the trust is drawn. This is how money's going to be handled or not. And this is what they want us to do. Do you ever have to become like the person who makes decision on medical stuff? Like, in the pour over? Or maybe they might have like a directive, medical directive within their trust. You ever get stuck doing that?
So, advanced directives, like a power of attorney for...
No, like if somebody's on life support and you're the one that's here and they're trusting you to be objective, do you ever have to be the one that says, yeah, pull the plug?
Well, there's instances through guardianship where those tough decisions are made.
Right.
And again, we'll obtain recommendations from physicians. We'll talk to primary care providers, maybe the doctor they were seeing in the community. Look at, holistic, talk to friends, talk to family. What would this person normally do in this situation?
Right.
And then we petition the court for the authority to do that. A trust, as a trustee, doesn't typically give you the authority to make medical decisions.
Right.
So if there's authority within like an estate planning portfolio, for instance, that gives you that type of authority, it's most likely in a medical power of attorney.
Right.
And then it has, an advance directive or a living will attached to it. And a lot of times what we find is that is up to the interpretation of the physician, the treating physician. So you can have a living will and it may say, terminal diagnosis, and the diagnosis is not really considered terminal. And the physician will tell us, well, this doesn't really apply. And so then we go down, rabbit holes, for lack of a better term.
Sure.
We just do kind of like Inspector Gadget in the office. We look at who are this person, who are their treating physicians, who, when they went to this doctor in the community, did the doctor ever talk to them about advance directives? Did they even have this type of document? Is there a conflicting document? When they were admitted to the hospital, if you've been in the hospital lately, that it's required. They want to talk. You have to sign it.
You have a DNR.
About it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And so what happened when that? Because sometimes we're not always involved when someone's admitted to the hospital.
How many times does that happen long before you get called?
Yes, absolutely. We're just kind of parachuted into a crisis. And then we have to kind of backtrack a little bit. And what would this person have wanted in their life? That's substituted judgment. How do we advocate best for this individual?
Right.
What are their religious preferences? What are their personal preferences? Who was their best friend? Who did they talk to on a regular basis? Who might have had this conversation with them? That's the investigative work that we're doing when those things come up. Even when there's a clear document naming us as a power of attorney for healthcare, if the physician disagrees with something in the document or feels like, well, this only applies if there's a terminal diagnosis, this isn't really terminal, then
Yeah.
the beauty is we can go to the court for instructions. We can piece together, their lives and get a better picture and make a more informed and decision for them.
Well, I think, again, going back to the fact that it's not 100% on your judgment call, right?
Right.
Which I
Right.
think eliminates concerns that some people might have that there could be some sort of ulterior or nefarious motive,
Right.
and that eliminates almost all of that. Simply, and everybody would have to be in cahoots, and that's unlikely.
It's very highly unlikely.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
So, who should be calling you right now? Who are the people that should call you immediately if they're watching this?
If they're watching this, we work with quite a few elder law attorneys, and I know that there's a lot of people who live in this town that don't have anybody, that have moved here, left family in the Midwest, left family on the East Coast, have families that are estranged
Mm-hmm.
and untrusting relationships, unfortunately.
Right.
And we're a great option for those attorneys that have those clients. We're a great option because we're a third party. They get to do the legal work and the attorney work, and we get to do kind of everything else. And we get to partner with them to provide for their client.
So the best thing then would be somebody to connect with an elder law attorney first, and then the elder law attorney send them your way, or should they call you directly?
They can do either one.
And because then if they don't have an elder law attorney, you can point them in that direction.
We'll give them multiple options.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
We have great attorneys in this community. Great elder law.
I think we have some really good ones. We also have some shysters, but you've been doing this long enough to know who they are, so you can run away from that pretty quick.
Yeah, we have great attorneys in this community.
Yeah, I would agree so. I think so. Yeah. Some really solid people. So, and people who legitimately care about the elderly and people who are over 55, I think some of the attorneys in this town just absolutely bend over backwards to do the right thing.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, above and beyond. I see many of the attorneys I work with really go above and beyond for their clients.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned Michelle earlier. I have a great deal of respect for her, and she has one that she's just finishing up. We're going to close escrow in 2 weeks, so I get that whole thing. So cool. So what else do people need to know before we wrap this up that maybe I didn't ask a question about?
Well, I think you asked a lot of great questions. Estate planning is essential. Talking to the people that you nominate. You may have someone that you trust in your life and you want to have them be your successor trustee or have them be your power of attorney for healthcare. Have a conversation with them before you put them in the document.
Oh gosh, yes.
Make sure they're agreeable to that. They understand your wishes and they want to do it. Because I do also see frequently people have these beautiful estate planning documents and they've nominated someone to be the power of attorney or for healthcare. They've nominated someone to be the successor trustee that really has no desire to do that. Not that they didn't love the individual or want to be there for the individual. It can be very overwhelming, and they may have their own life, their own work, their own family, and it can be really a lot. So
well, and depending upon who they are, they're also, depending upon the circumstances, dealing with a great deal of grief at that moment. And sometimes, in my opinion, that's probably the wrong time to make certain kinds of decisions. I mean, if you're dealing with a lot of grief, do you really want to be the person who says on a person's life, do you want to be the person that has to petition to get them removed from life support? Or would you rather have a person who's independent and going to think more objectively? I think those kinds of things. Well, you also mentioned something that I think a lot of people fail to mention or think about is once they've kind of decided on what they want to do, they should have conversations with their family.
Absolutely.
I tell people all the time, listen, it's not so much to get a trust and then fund the trust or have medical directives and outline all of your details. If the people in your world you love and care about the most don't understand what you truly want, that's going to be troublesome at the end. Because if your kids don't understand, like my kids all understand that if I get to the place where there's no return, take me out.
Yeah.
Take me out. But they needed to understand that that's my wishes are, not that some rando is deciding that. Like, or my wife. They might say, well, gee, she might be doing it because of X. No, she's doing it because that's what I want. But I made sure they understood that.
Right. And I also think it's important that, our families can have periods of dysfunction and periods of estrangement. And if your children or siblings are not getting along at any point, your passing or your incapacity will not change that. It will most likely only exasperate it. And keep that in mind too. There's a lot of, oh, well, if something ever happened to me, my kids would pull it together. That has not been my experience.
Stress actually makes things worse.
Yeah, that's not been my experience. And those conversations are so important. The living trust, the estate planning documents, those are living, breathing documents. Your life is fluid. Those documents should be just as fluid. And anytime you make a change, or the more detailed you can be in that document, there's usually like a Schedule A or a personal property list. I see those blanks so many times. Fill it out. If you have a family heirloom, mark it, put a sticky note on it, write it down somewhere.
And tell people, take a picture.
Take a picture, yeah, absolutely.
And mark on there, well, one, maybe put a history. And then two, say the how and why it's going to go to a certain person who maybe will honor that history or whatever. And then share that information with your family. Don't make it be a secret.
Right. And we're so digitally driven now.
Yeah.
Have one password. Use a password vault. Have a LastPass. Give the password to the individual that you've trusted to be your successor trustee. Don't just leave things in the computer that no one can access after you pass away.
I agree.
Make sure someone knows how to access those documents or share those documents with them. Set up a shared Google Drive. Just anything to make it accessible for the person that you've nominated.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you being here. This has been very helpful.
Yeah, thanks for
I
having
imagine
me.
if anybody emails me questions or whatever, I can either send them to you, or maybe we do this again and maybe answer some of those questions.
Yeah, I would love
more
that.
Specific.
Yeah.
That could be fun, right?
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Outstanding. Your offices are close enough. I guess we could probably do that. Well, fantastic. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so very much. Very, very helpful. And looking forward to us continue to work together.
Yeah, sounds good, Mitchell. Thank you.
Thank you for being here on today's Living Well and Aging Smart podcast. It's never too late to transition in your life and take the next step in aging through clarity, through confidence, and certainly with a great community that cares about you. If today's episode resonated at all with you and you got questions, feel free to call me up directly. I'm on my cell phone, 702-303-0040. You can reach out to me personally. Go to my website, seniораssistancesteam.com. You could also, if you want, click the link in the description and say, hey, I'd like to schedule a free 15-minute phone call with you, just to chat and ask whatever question you got. That's why I'm here. Feel free to reach out. But if you got something out of this, or you think somebody else would, subscribe to this, leave a comment or a question, share it with a friend. Those are things that would be very helpful. Thank you again so much for being here. Until then, all I'm asking you to do is stay safe, stay smart, live well, and age smart. I hope to talk to you real soon and look forward to seeing you in the next podcast.